I'm a fan of WarioWare. It's really hard to pick a favorite from the franchise. I like Twisted because it was my first one and still remains the most novel to me. I like Touched because it's got probably my favorite set of minigames, or Microgames, if you want to put it that way. I like the original because it introduced the entire concept in the first place in a masterful manner. There are plenty of times where I have just opened up that game for like a 5-minute play session. It's great. And there are plenty of reasonable options that I have and have not listed here that are wonderful candidates for my favorite game in the WarioWare series. That said, it is not hard to pick a least favorite. Wario Ware Snapped is a game from the DSiWare series that attempts to make use of the DSi's camera to play a number of microgames. Microgames are bunched by character, and each set of microgames ends with an amusing, out-of-context slideshow of all the players' movements during the game set. I say the game attempts because it ultimately does a very poor job at registering the user's actions. This imprecision makes the microgames in the game quite difficult and unresponsive. But at least within the WarioWare franchise, there is a good variety of microgames that keep the player on their toes. Most of the time, at least. Wario Ware Snapped features exactly 20 microgames that'll be sure to keep the player entertained for billions of shakes. You do the math. These 20 microgames are remixes on the standard WarioWare microgames, like picking one's nose or grabbing a bunch of coins, removing any novel form these minigames may have. To make matters worse, at least at launch there were exactly 4 characters with playable sets of games, meaning that one would play exactly 5 minigames per character. And to rub salt in the wound, the slideshows recreated at the end of the microgame cannot be saved, meaning that you aren't even able to share your stupid gaming moments with your friends. Like Wario Ware Snapped, I'm doing my best to elongate the content of this work by reiterating what is obvious to you, the listener. As a gamer, I don't like Wario Ware Snapped. What's worse is that this game cost money. Yes, really. The DSiWare program required users to pay money to buy things in the form of Nintendo points, which themselves were funded by Mummy's glorious credit card. Nintendo's first foray into cryptocurrency allowed their early adopters to potentially buy this sad excuse of a title. Can you believe such recklessness? And I remember seeing advertisements for this game and being really excited about it. I remember thinking how cool it would be to have to move my mouth open and close to eat a hot dog on screen. And I was willing to spend a lot of money for a preteen to play these games. I spent 500 whole Nintendo points on this game. What in 2011 might have been $5 and today closer to $50,000. How lamentable my circumstances, throwing away a potential fortune for Wario Ware Snapped. This game is still available for purchase on the 3DS's eShop for $4.99 USD, as recent as March 2022, in case there's someone out there in the world that would choose to play this game. I doubt there is such a person, but the law of averages would suggest otherwise, so yeah, we'll just roll with it, okay? Like how every Pokémon is someone's favorite, there is probably someone out there who is only just learning about Wario Ware Snapped's existence, and wanting to see for themselves how awful this game truly is. Or, at least, that's the explanation I propose. I don't know why anyone else would want to buy this game. Though, that person is now on a timer. As of February 15th, that gamer has a little over 1 year to buy this game if they want a chance at playing it. Nintendo announced on February 15th, 2022, the planned shutdown of the eShop access for the Wii U and 3DS for late March 2023. This announcement, after one of the most exciting Nintendo Directs for fans of retro, often hard-to-find video games like Live Alive, is especially excruciating. For many gamers, the eShop is the sole location where these otherwise expensive retro titles can be purchased at a reasonable price. Seriously, try finding a Pokémon Crystal cartridge. They are expensive. As a gamer, access to video games is something that weighs heavily upon my mind. I am a firm believer in the mantra that for video games, digital is for convenience, but physical is for permanence. And this sentiment is cemented by Nintendo's choice. It is thoroughly disappointing to see Nintendo's continued irreverence at digital media preservation, as video games, in my mind, are a media worth preserving. The cinephile is able to rewatch their favorite movies due to the incredible access to preserved film via libraries, digitization, and other common preservation efforts. The audiophile is able to listen to new pieces of music and performances through efforts to restore audio recordings for modern-day players. Video games, sadly, have a much smaller preservation movement, of which there is a clear lack of support from major publishing companies, such as Nintendo. There are those who might want to play a Game Boy Advance game with extra content, perhaps like Super Mario Advance 4, Super Mario Bros. 3, and their e-reader levels. But they may lack the e-reader, its cards, or even a Game Boy Advance itself. This limitation, therefore, pushes players to consider alternative means to access games with potentially lost content, the most popular method being emulation. With emulation, the player can simply load up Visual Boy Advance, take their Super Mario Advance 4 ROM and the Game Shark codes that unlock all the e-reader levels, and go to town. Emulating video game consoles is something that really feels illegal, but surprisingly is not. Sony Computer Entertainment Incorporated versus Connectix Corporation ruled that the copying of a copyrighted BIOS software during the development of an emulator software does not constitute copyright infringement and is covered by fair use. This implies that a gamer that is a citizen of the United States of America is completely within their inalienable, God-given American rights to own and operate an emulator. The illegality of emulating video games, therefore, comes from obtaining and using various video game ROM and/or ISO files. For a while, if one wanted to play Pokémon Emerald on their phone on the bus ride to school and show off their cool team to all their high school friends because Pokémon was cool again in high school, they could just go on their phone and go to coolrom.com or loveroms.com and simply find the proper link to click. This, of course, was illegal, but Nintendo was never able to quite cut off the head of this hideous hydra. This eventually changed, however, in 2018, when Nintendo decided that they were tired of people not playing their mobile Pokémon games, and sued web owners like Jacob Mathias for hosting ROM files of Nintendo games on his website. Since this event, Nintendo has been especially aggressive in ensuring that ROM-sharing sites are contained and shut down under the threat of legal action. Nintendo's removal of their ROMs from ROM-sharing sites might be slightly less enraging if Nintendo had made their older, oft-forgotten games accessible in some reasonable manner. However, with Nintendo's pitiful attempts at reselling an emulation service in Nintendo Switch Online, and now removal of the eShop with its multitudinous collections of Virtual Console titles, Nintendo is making it very clear that they do not believe in the idea of video games in media preservation. My interest in gaming often resides in the stories they can tell and the experiences they can share. I have taken it upon myself to listen to others who might rave about a series of games they enjoy and attempt to form my own opinion of said media. Some of my entire interest in playing new games, some games like Mother 3 or Final Fantasy 3/6, that eventually have become some of my favorite games, comes from the enthusiasm that others have for them. These are games that are notably difficult to access as a gamer in the United States, either due to a lack of their official translation or their discontinuation of manufacture. And I know that there's a pixel remaster of Final Fantasy VI now. I wrote this script before it was released, okay? Give me a break. Still, what if I want to play it on the SNES? What if I want to play Wind God Gao? What if I want to break the game? My game, I can do whatever I want. I can play how I want. Don't judge me. These are games that, I would have gladly spent the appropriate amount of money to own on a physical platform. Which I ended up doing anyway by supporting small used game businesses. Secondhand stores. Go buy some games from there, they're nice. I even got a Mother 3 on cart from something like that. The fan translation, yeah, but it's still on cart. It's kind of fun to play. And Final Fantasy 3 I found at a used game store in Decorah, Iowa. And I bought it for like $40, which in hindsight is a little much, but you know what? What can you do? It really is a shame that there is so little I can legally do to maintain my hobby. I look forward to a day, 15 years from now perhaps, in which I finally sit down and decide with myself that it's morally alright to try playing Fire Emblem Fates. And then I will turn on the definitive edition of the game with all 3 story routes and all the downloadable content included. And I'm going to have a hell of a time petting these girls on their foreheads. Or maybe, I want to play an old version of Super Contra complete with save states for my impatient ass. Or maybe I'm feeling like playing a random DSiWare game like Glow Artisan. It's a good game. It's actually really hard. The point being, unless I preserve these games myself, I will have no way to play any of these games on my own terms. Maybe I'll want to play every single WarioWare title in existence for some reason. But without media preservation, those games might end up like the subtitle of a certain collection of 20 microgames on a DSiWare game. Snapped. Like the fucking Marvel thing or whatever. Look, I haven't seen Avengers Endgame, so I'm just trying to be cool and hip, but I haven't seen it. So I am inevitable. That's Nintendo with the eShop. That was the whole point of this video essay. Media preservation is very important!